You're watching Good Day Austin on Fox 7.
Hard to believe it's been 1 year now since Hurricane Harvey hit the city of Houston, decimated the city, and 1 year later we're trying to learn lessons from Harvey, what the city of Houston can learn and hopefully prevent similar disasters in the future. Here to talk a little bit more about that work, Mark Jones, political science professor from Rice University. Mark, thank you so much for your time.
No, it's my pleasure.
Houston native myself, with parents who still live in the area, and I remember being on the phone with them 1 year ago and other family and friends and hearing those stories and being so scared as Harvey hit and flooded that city. What are some of the biggest lessons and biggest takeaways from that storm?
Well, I think on one hand, Harvey was a storm of epic biblical proportions, and so there are some view is that there's nothing you can do to prevent a Harvey. However, there are quite a few things that can be done to limit or ameliorate any potential impact of a future Harvey or storms that are of lesser scale but still quite strong. I think one thing that it really has caused is a reflection in Houston on our land use patterns. As unlike many cities, we allowed quite a bit of construction in 100-year floodplains. We had essentially a system politically as well as economically that was biased in favor of developers and construction firms, allowing them to build in many places where, quite frankly, they shouldn't have been building. So while some of the flooding could not have been foreseen, in some places, such as out in the reservoirs, where they literally built houses inside the reservoir basin and area, those can be prevented in the future.
Yeah, and again, as a Houston native, I remember the streets flooding a little bit when I was a kid growing up, but as just from following the city from down the road here in Austin, seeing just heavy rain for an afternoon can flood the feeder roads in town well before Harvey ever got here. So you could see what that construction had done to the city in terms of handling flooding events. How do we turn that, or how does the city of Houston turn that around going forward?
Well, we'd like to probably see, I guess the ideal would be some type of greater zoning, although in Houston there's sort of a historic resistance to that. But there is, I think, a need to put a spotlight on developers as well as politicians at both the county and city level to hold them more accountable for the actions that they take in terms of allowing development and no longer allowing the irresponsible development that took place for decades got us into this situation. That is building homes where you should never have built homes, and then also building over the prairies and grasslands out to the west and the north of Houston that have been covered over, that used to soak up a lot of the rain like a sponge, but no longer do that because they're covered with concrete. All that water has to go somewhere as it rushes to the Gulf, and unfortunately it goes into people's basements, well, not basements because we don't have those in Houston, but yeah, goes into their houses, garages, and sometimes up to the second floor.
Real quick, Mark, before we let you go, in this 12 months since Harvey, do you think that city leaders have at least started to learn those lessons? Or are you optimistic about what the city might do going forward?
Well, I think there's greater scrutiny. On the other hand, we do have some unfortunate recent decisions by the city to say, for instance, allowing the development of a former golf course, which would have been a great detention pond and is right in a flood area, but has been allowed for the construction or permitted for the construction of over 600 houses. So there still is some learning to be done. But I think the spotlight is shining on developers and politicians, and so I think there is a greater awareness, as well as there's going to be support. We're going to see this Sunday this passage of a $2.5 billion bond issue that will allow a tax increase, but also construction of a large number of projects designed to limit future flooding, both in terms of helping to buy out people whose homes are in low-lying areas, but also to construct detention basins and create better drainage.
Yeah, very important research. Wish we had more time to talk about it. Mark Jones from Rice University. Mark, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.